Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching. The channel's called Ratchet. My name's Andrew, and on this episode, I carry out some bespoke modifications to the back end of the 40. Run the title. Welcome to the channel if you're new. If you're not, welcome back for yet another episode. Before I do start, I just wanted to say thank you for all of the positive comments received off of the back of the last bodywork video. I wasn't sure how it was going to go down, if I'm honest, because bodywork can be a bit samey and a bit boring at times. So I was really happy to read some of the positive comments and feedback left against that last video. So thank you everyone for that. So cracking on with the theme of bodywork in this video, like I mentioned, I start carrying out some bespoke shenanigans to the back end of the car. Now, I make myself up a little Gurney lip spoiler. I also shorten the number plate recess as I've picked up a 5-digit number plate. English number plates are normally 6-digit. So I basically shorten the entire recess around the new smaller number plate, which is quite cool. And also I finally get around to removing the butt ugly reverse and rear fog lights that were underneath the main indicator and stop lights. So there's quite a lot going on. I hope you do enjoy this episode, and without further ado, let's crack on. So I've decided the next thing on the hit list is the reverse light and the fog light that sit below the main tail lights. I've always thought they look particularly ugly, so I can't wait to get rid of these. The plan is to actually pick up some smaller light units and mount them behind the mesh grills, either fixed to the bodywork or mounted off of the chassis. So I think it's just going to make the back end look far tidier and a lot more pretty. Let me get these lights stripped out and then get the area prepped up and ready to lay some glass. It didn't take much to remove the lights because they were just masticed in. So just cutting around the mastic, the lights popped out. So now what I can do is stick some cardboard on the outside so it takes the profile of the rear clam, get that secured in place, and then I can lay out the glass from the inside. So in theory, it should be a fairly easy job. Something I've never really been a big fan of is the fact that the car has a 2018 registration plate. I think it suits the car because at the moment it's painted a very modern colour, but because I'm pretty much set on a far more period correct colour, I thought now would be a good time to pick up a period correct registration for the car to wear. So a D-Reg I think is a 1964, 1965. Certainly something around that era and correct for the Mark 1 GT40s. So once I bought the number plate, I then placed an order for a couple of pressed black and silver aluminium number plates, to which I then cut one down, cut the surround off and shortened it, with it only being a 5-digit plate. I could get away with a shorter number plate. So what the plan is to have it obviously in its standard location, but cut the number plate recess so it sucks in around the number plate. So I will shorten the number plate recess. So I'm looking forward to getting cracking on this one to see how it actually turns out. So this one took a bit of thinking about. Basically, I'm marking out with masking tape where I want to make my cuts. Because what I want to end up with is the simplest infill piece possible. So I'm making sure that all of my cuts are on the flattest and squarest sections. So when I move it in, I've then got the least amount of work either cutting pieces out or infilling pieces, if that makes sense. So once I was happy with how they looked and what I was going to be working with, I'd simply cut the recessed pieces out just with a 1mm thick metal cutting disc. Well, there is zero going back now, but what I hope you'll be able to sort of understand is the method behind what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to achieve and how I'm going about it. So now I've chopped out the end pieces, what I'll basically just do is move them in to the new width of the number plate. What I'll do now is I'll get the number plate in place, work out how much I need to move in the sides, and then to chop that out and then fit this into fit the two end caps into their new place. And then that'll leave me just to glass this back piece in, which again I'll just do with templates on the outside and then glass from the backside. That's the plan anyway. So once I've made my cuts and lined up the number plate, sussed out how much I needed to cut out, here you can see me working with just some 2-part adhesive, bonding the pieces into place, getting them held into position in readiness for the usual fiberglassing. After a lot of mucking around getting the sides as symmetrical as I humanly possibly could, I'm now in a position to start glassing from the backside. So as always, I've just got some thin cardboard that I've taped on the front side. It's taken the profile of the radius really nicely, so now I can chop some mat and get glassing. After the usual fiberglass P38 thin skimmer filler, I can finally show you how the shortened number plate recess looks. And I say it all the time, but I'm really happy with how it's turned out, and I'm quite surprised, to be honest. Fiberglass is so easy to work with, so anyone who's worried about chopping it up to make any modifications, just get involved, because it's just so forgiving. Yeah, it's just a great thing to work with, excluding the dust, of course. So anyway, without any further ado, let me show you how it's turned out.
That's good.
So with the number plate recess done for most part, up until the fine filler and sanding stage, I can now crack on with the next little touch that I wanted to bring to the back end, and that is making a gurney plate that fits to the back. Because of obviously the shortened recess, I couldn't just buy one, and buying one just isn't what I do. So I picked up just a piece of 4mm plate that I'm going to chop up and see what I can make, to be honest. So what I'm going to do first of all is get it mounted to the car. So get the holes drilled in the plate, get the holes in the rear clam done, and then once that's fixed into place, it will then make it much easier for me to run the template in the offset around the back of the car so I get the profile exactly the same all the way over the clam. If I'm honest, at this stage, I don't think I'm going to make it height adjustable because it's not a race car. I'm not going to adjust it for any reason. This is purely aesthetics. So I know on some they come with slotted holes so you can raise and lower the flap, but I don't see the point. I might change my mind, but we'll see. So let's make a start on get the flat sheet fitted to the car. So what I've done is get the piece of aluminium in place, mocked up on the car. Coming around to the other side, you can sort of see what upstand I think I fancy. So what I'm going to do now is, because I know how it sits, I've given myself some reference marks about how to reposition it on the car. I'm going to take it off and then drill my holes in the plate and then bring it back through to the car and then finally drill the holes in the rear clam. So the whole process of getting these holes drilled, even though it was a very short sentence to say, it actually took me far longer than I first expected. So it was just a matter of really sussing out the physical ends of the flap, the number plate recess, how that sat, and then just how I wanted the holes to be spaced. Did I want the underside of the flap to be profiled to the top? Whether I wanted 2 holes above the number plate recess, you know, just suitable spacings both horizontally and vertically. So it just took a fair bit of head scratching and consideration before I did actually mark any holes and get them drilled. So as you can see, I now have the holes drilled. I have 3 holes either side of the deeper portion, and then I have just one single hole in the center. So now what I can do is get it fitted back to the car and then get the holes drilled. So nice and simply, got it mounted back up on the car, and you can just see me running along the back edge, drilling the holes in the rear clam, ready for mounting. And one last final job was to cut the number plate recess out. So after a lot of measuring and a lot of double checking, just went at it with an angle grinder. So with the number plate recess cut out, got it bolted into the car, and I surprise myself sometimes. It fits absolutely perfectly, which I didn't think for a second that would be the case. So I surprised myself. I'm genuinely shocked. I'm just making this stuff up as I go along, to be honest. I've got an end goal of where I want to get to, but how I get there, I can kind of cobble together. But the actual result, you know, I don't really know how it's going to turn out. You know, my skill set is constantly sort of evolving. So times like this, you know, I'm genuinely chuffed. So anyway, enough of that. I've got it bolted into place just on the 2 ends and in the middle. So now what I can do is just finally double check the profile of the cut that I want to make along the top edge of the lip. So then I'll take it back off and then do that final cut and then put it back on the car and see what it looks like. Final cut's done, profile shaped up really nicely, beautifully even along the top edge of the rear clam. Just dressed it with a file, and there it is. Really happy. Very subtle upstand. I didn't want to go too crazy, but I think it's just enough just to give it that look without being too over the top. So this will be brushed, so it matches with all of the other aluminium fitted elsewhere around the car, but I'm made up with how it's turned out, as I keep saying. So that is another episode done and dusted. I hope you enjoyed this one. I certainly have. Just how things panned out, I'm really happy with, and I think the overall change to the back end is huge. Only a few little subtle differences, but to me, it's really starting to put my stamp on it. If you've liked this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button below so you don't miss any future videos that I do release. You can click up into the top right hand corner and that will take you through to the playlist of all of the previous videos I have released. In the next video, I'm off on a road trip, or I should be, all being well. I'm going up to Tornado to pick up some parts that I need for the car. So up until that point, thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you next time.